Hi, I'm Terry Maggart. Welcome back to the channel. And the first thing I would like to impart is that Mary Sue is better than you, or Gary Stu, depending on. So we run into these characters and, they're just good at everything. They're a ninja, nuclear physicist, French chef who can sing, that kind of thing. So we have to address, how did they get there? Do they have any flaws at all? Are perfection personified? Is that enjoyable to read? And it might be. That's cool. I get asked all the time, and really these videos that I do are just addressing questions that people ask me about, talking about building characters and writing long series and how do you stay at it and stuff like that. But the Mary Sue, Gary Stu issue comes down to a couple fundamental questions. The first thing is, when you're building a character, you always say, what do they want and what are they willing to do to get it? That's the first thing that I always ask. And then the second thing is, before I even get rolling with them, I like to say, what is it going to cost them to get to where they want to go? That's just a baseline question that I ask. And and maybe I come at this from the experience of being an older guy. I am not without scars and not without cost and loss and all of the things that naturally occur over 6 decades of life. But those scars and losses and everything can be used to create people who are three-dimensional and realistic and interesting, and that you're invested in them and you want them to do well, or you want them to fail. Depends on if you're writing them as an antagonist or a protagonist, either one. But one of the things that I always say is I have to ascertain their goal. I need to know their goal. And then I think to myself, well, it's impossible to write a book for me. It's tough to write a book and not put myself into the character's shoes a little bit and say, what would I do in this? Well, if you have a character who's completely amoral, then the answer is almost anything. So are they going to get to the promised land, so to speak, and is it going to cost them? If not, is it interesting? Is it viable? I don't know. For me, it's not, because you can say that life is joy and life is love. You can also make the argument that life is pain. But I think if you braid the three together, you end up with something that is similar or closer to reality. So another issue about when I get asked, building these characters, it is, how do they interact with other people? Do they regard other people as an asset, as something to be exploited? Do they regard other people as just living in their world? And I think that's where we get an interesting crossover between real life and the life on the pages. Because we've all met people that just consider you as a stepping stone, or what can they get out of you, or you're in a conversation with them and all they're doing is thinking about the next thing that they want to say while you're telling them about something that's important to you or that is germane to the conversation. I think that a Mary Sue / Gary Stu probably has tendencies towards those things, because there's this implied value to what they're doing, that life hasn't cost them anything necessarily, or at least nothing tangible. And so consequently, their entire arc is a series of events that is propelling them towards a higher state that none of the other characters in the book can enjoy. Well, I think we have to be really careful. I have to be really careful I want people in my books, I want the characters to experience loss. I don't want it to be a parade of grim events. For them, that's not who I am as an author. That's not who I am as a reader. But this goes back to an equation where you're going to salt in some victories with the losses. And I think that you can pick a happy medium somewhere along them and avoid having a character that is just too perfect and having a character that is so deeply flawed that they're unlikable. because both of those are risks. So split the middle maybe and see how they come out. And then maybe you get somebody like Van. Maybe you get somebody like Tarina or Dash or Livy or all the characters that I've written through the years. I like to think that if I've done anything, I've created people that even if they have a starship or can perform witchcraft or if they fly a dragon, they are still relatable because they share some of the bumps and bruises that we do, and they react to them accordingly, and they persevere. We all persevere whether we want to or not. This goes back to me saying at a certain point your life becomes have to and not want to. And with your characters, the most interesting ones that I have ever built are the ones that understand that have to as a life is more interesting and rewarding than want to. Thank you for being here. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, and some of your questions, I'll keep answering them.